Okay, so part two. Look, there are a lot of guides where you get a finished build and you have absolutely no idea how to level it. I don't want to do that here. So, just as a general principle, you can get your second mastery. So you can, if you're leveling a Nightblade, you can choose Arcanist at level 10. You don't need to do that. I usually wait until around somewhere between level 30 and 40 to pick my second mastery because I like to fill in some of the main core skills that I'm going to be using. So for the Nightblade part, if you're playing a Cold Nightblade, you're going to level with Spectral Longswords and Cold Shadow Strike because I think that's by far the best way to level. It's fun, you zoom around the map, it's fast, it's efficient, Shadow Strike hits very hard, and ultimately, a lot of builds you're going to want to get all of the way to 50 for Blade Spirits and Execution, but you don't have to do that right away. The most important thing when you're leveling is you want to get Shadow Strike at least soft capped, which means 16 out of 16. Hard cap would be 26 out of 16. You want to get Nidala's Justifiable Ends. Even though you're not playing a poison build, this gives skill cooldown reduction to Shadow Strike, which is very important for increasing your damage per second when using it. You want to get this to at least soft cap as well, so 12 out of 12. And you also want to push the Mastery bar because this is going to give you base stats, physique, cunning, spirit, health, energy. Ultimately, by level 25, you want the Mastery bar to be at least to 25 in Nightblade. And you want, if you're not there already, to at least have Shadow Strike and Nidala's Justifiable Ends soft capped. If you're using Spectral Longswords, which you should be, those will give you some additional points to Shadow Strike that make that easier. Now, sometime between level 25 and level 40, you're going to start leveling up the Arcanist skill tree. This is good in multiples of 2 because, you know, like 2, 4, 6, 8, etc. You want to get Mirror because that's a panic button. Hopefully you don't need that early on normal, but better to have it and not need it than the other way around. And once you can start getting some points in Maven's Sphere of Protection, you're going to feel a little bit tankier since your character is going to take less damage. And Nullification is good to have as well. So by the time you're around level 45, you want to make sure you've got your Shadow Strike main skill at least soft capped, if not by 45 a little bit more. You want to make sure that you also have at least up to Nullification. Ultimately, whether you choose to push for Star Pact after that, or whether you push up the Nightblade tree is kind of up to you. I'd say as long as you're in a reasonable spot in your skill tree by level 45, then you're kind of good to go either direction. The other thing you want is dual blades. This is going to give you at soft cap 10% physical resistance, which is going to, of course, reduce the damage you take from physical attacks. The flat pierce damage here is going to get converted into cold because you're going to be wielding Spectral Longswords, and you're also going to get a little bit more cold damage. You can 1-point the weapon pool skills and some of the other passives. At some point you'll want Pneumatic Burst, Shadow Dance, and all of these as well. But I think the main thing is on normal and level 45 or so, you want to make sure you have Shadow Strike done, and you want to make sure you get Arcanist up to at least Nullification. After that, you know where you want to go, and it's up to you whether you want to kind of push the mastery bars, invest more in your skills, and so forth. Let's talk a little bit about how we would level devotions, because you see the completed setup. Now, I like to start, since I play hardcore, with Turtle for the circuit breaker right away. So your first shrine, you take the yellow crossroads here, and then your next 5 devotion points are going to go into Turtle. Once you get this, you see that Turtle has a complete constellation bonus of 2 yellow, which means once it's completed, it's self-sustaining. So you can go to a spirit guide, you can refund this point, and you can then invest in either the red crossroads or the green crossroads. I usually invest in the red crossroads and take Viper next. It has offensive ability, it has Vitres, it has some energy leech, and some stats. It also, the RR is going to be pretty nice. Once you have this, then I typically like to get Fox, and ultimately at this point you'll have 3 red, and if you have Fox in the green crossroads and you have Turtle and Viper, you'll be able to take Rumor. You'd also be able to take Behemoth. You can take either one. Doesn't really matter. It's going to get you to the same place in the end. Once you've done that, you fill in some of the other devotion points for greens that you need. Now, one thing to note here is you see that you have 8 red. You also see that Revenant here requires 8 red, and it also gives you 1. So this means at some point you're going to have to find a source of temporary red devotions. I usually just take Jackal. I refund this crossroads, take Jackal, complete Revenant, add this back, remove Jackal. Again, you can do all of this at the Spirit Guide, but there are some slight things that you have to do to kind of make the devotion pathing work here. This isn't the only devotion path you can take. I do like Ugol because the damage reduction is something you don't normally have on a Spellbreaker. If you're playing a different Cold Nightblade class, you can go a different direction. Now, Revenant has 24 reduced targets resistance. There are sources that have more flat resistance reduction in the devotion tree, but this is also giving you health and attack damage converted to health, so it fits better, I think, for most builds. It's just my opinion. It's not the only way to do it, but I do think that's kind of worth thinking about. Now, in addition to Spectral Longswords, which you're wondering where to get them, so if you go here, there's a cave here which has a boss. The boss has a 100% chance to drop 1 of 3 weapons. One of them is a Spectral Longsword. Also, Broken Hills, if you go into the Arcovian Undercity, there is a enemy Nomos Dread who also has a 1/3 chance to drop a Spectral Longsword. You can farm these guys. If you're really having trouble, there is a hidden vendor in the Blood Grove. I'll show you guys where he is. He sells Spectral Longswords. But yeah, so you go from the Blood Grove Rift, you kind of hug this corner here, go through this pipe, keep going, and you're starting to see the vendor logo on the map, and yeah, it's this guy here. He's a very useful vendor. He doesn't just sell Spectral Longswords. You can see he sells some other items, but he also sells the Kaimon Medal and the Death's Vigil Amulet if you're interested in those. But that's the other way that you would potentially get a Spectral Longsword. Now, go back to Devil's Crossing and go back to the stash, because there are a few other things that are kind of worth looking at when you're leveling. First of all, if you're leveling with Lokar set, which is the leveling set that you wouldn't be doing on a fresh start, but once you've played the game a bit and you have that, then that's one option, and you don't need to worry about chest pieces or helms or anything else like that, because those are all covered. But if you're not doing that, then you have something called a Fettin Mask. It's not the absolute best helm in the world, but There's a level 75 version on Elite and a level 94 version on Ultimate that give +1 to skills. I'll show you where that is in a minute. If you are hostile with Barrowhome, you have access to this helm, the Namadea's Horns. And this is going to require Shattered Realm or grinding Nemesis status with Death's Vigil if you're allied with Kaimon's Chosen. But these shoulders give +3 to Lethal Assault, which is a buff. They also give you 5% Fizz Res. You're more likely to probably get to this at endgame, but it is worth noting if you're not going to use the Shattered Realm set. Murderer's Breastplate gives + to Shadow Strike and + to Dual Blades. Acid to Pierce isn't the best thing in the world, but it's also not really the end of the world for you. So you can pick these up and you can use them, and they'll help you level. You can get some good blue items leveling, but Dreeg Pants you can get from level 30 on. Salile Pants, same deal. So the Dreeg boss, you kind of go north of Devil's Crossing, and there's a sort of an area that you dynamite. Salile boss, you go to Broken Hills Rift, and you go around like you're going to Steps of Torment, and provided you've picked up the Waystone from the Dreeg boss, there's a sort of hidden path that'll open for you that gives you access to the Salile boss. Dreeg Pants give you stun res, Salile Pants give you attack damage converted to health. Both of them are very nice. Other things to note when leveling: Slith Primal Rings. Outside of the Whitemire Rift, there is a quest where you get 3 Slith necklaces, and they give you this ring. This ring already, this is the low level one, has 12% poison, vit, and elemental res, which is more than you're going to get pretty much anywhere else. The level 71, as you can see, is even better. And the level 45 one is still a nice upgrade. Level 45 one you find on Elite, level 70 is on Ultimate. Also, once you get to the Malmuth area, you'll get these living rings, which give you +3 to Iskander's elemental exchange, % health, % elemental damage, and potential sources of resistances as well. So these are very nice. I use them even in endgame. Elena's necklace, you need to be honored with Devil's Crossing to get a quest to go to Hargate's Isle. You get that quest and you kill Elena the First Slith, she will drop one of these necklaces. Since you need to be honored with Devil's Crossing, you might not get to this until Elite if you are on a fresh start. If you have access to faction mandates for reputation gain, you can do this on normal though. This is also a nice item, because especially for a Spellbreaker, because it's +1 to Nightblade, and it also gives additional damage and health to Star Pact once you get all the way to Star Pact. So that's very worthwhile. Ilgor Medal has damages boost to Pneumatic Burst, and is a good general Nightblade medal. Gale Slice, you can find Gale Slice by the one of the Celestial Totem spawns. If you go to the Burwich Village Riftgate, you go east, you repair the bridge, and then kind of go south. You'll loop around. You'll find Gale Slice. You can look up the precise locations for all of these on Grim Tools, by the way, which is potentially one of your best friends in this game. So look at that. But the Gale Slice medal has bonuses to Shadow Strike, which can be kind of nice. And it doesn't require you to use a skeleton key and go into Steps of Torment, so that's a positive. You might get Nightblade belts while you're leveling. You kind of have to get lucky. Black Legion and Malmuth Resistance both have craftable belts that give you +1 to Nightblade. There's a Relic Slaughter that gives you +1 to Nightblade as well, and a Death Chill Relic, which gives you a bunch of cold damage. Death Chill or Slaughter are both fine for leveling. If you don't have the blueprints, you can vendor farm the... there's a vendor, Hiram, in Malmuth Resistance, who once you rescue him, you can farm him and just go somewhere else, reset him, come back, and eventually he'll have the blueprint you need. So that's an option there. So those are kind of the things to think about when you're leveling a Nightblade. Hopefully that is somewhat helpful. And yeah, ultimately what you do, it kind of depends on where you see yourself going with the build. If you are playing Locksmere, you need hard cap Nidala's justifiable ends, ideally, to really take advantage of low cooldown Shadow Strike. If you're playing Spectral Longswords, that's a little less important. And if you're playing, say, Malkadar or even Chill Strife, you might even, in endgame, 1-point Shadow Strike, and then use your weapon pool skills. There's a default attack replacer called Shard of Baronath, which gives you more damage than standard auto attacks, which if you're primarily doing default attacks with Malkadar or Chill Strife, you're going to want to use on one of your weapons. Since I'm doing Shadow Strike here, I have double Cold Stones because those are the best for boosting cold damage. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful, and let me know in the comments below, and we will be coming up with additional guides for Nightblades, cold and otherwise, in the future.